How's it guys, this is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'll be taking you guys through the ultimate guide to the upcoming Game Week 3. So Game Week 3 proves to be quite an interesting game week, 2 free transfers for the majority of us FPL managers, and we're actually struggling to know where to spend them. But don't worry, in this ultimate guide, I'll be going over all the big talking points. Gabriel out, should you be taking him out, and if so, for who? Who's the strikers are going to target with those transfers in? Alvarez versus Foden, Rashford versus Bruno, and then all the usual stuff like the Captaincy, the best fixtures, and the stats review. So an absolute jam-packed Game Week 3 ultimate guide on the cards here. So sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So let's start off this ultimate guide like we usually do with taking a look at the stats review. I'll be going over the attacking and the defensive stats, and going over the top 6 and bottom 6 teams. So let's get straight into it with the attacking stats. These are going to be from Fantasy Football Fix. Go check them out if you guys haven't. So the best teams in terms of the opening 2 games are going to be on screen right now. Now these stats also averaged according to 90 minutes. We've unfortunately had to do that because there was a blank game week 2 for Luton and Burnley. However, they're not in the top 6. So Brighton are leading with a current 3.01 XG non-penalty. Now just a reminder, this is the non-penalty variant of XG. So penalties have been completely removed. So Brighton's attack is ticking along nicely. Lovely fixtures though to open the season, Luton and Wolves, as 3 expected goals per game is simply outstanding. Now interestingly enough, we then have Manchester United with 2.14, and I own both their midfielders and I haven't gotten any points from them. So this is one of those scenarios where the stats don't back up the real life stats and just shows that Manchester United have been underperforming quite significantly. So should we actually keep hold of Bruno? Should we keep hold of Rashford? I'll detail it a little bit later on, but nice to see if you guys are going to keep them. Their XG on penalty is pretty decent. We then have Liverpool with 2.01, kind of an expectation, a great attacking side usually, not the best defensive side, but they have been scoring a few goals in the opening 2. We then have Wolves, Aston Villa and Newcastle, so some surprises there. Wolves especially, 1.98 is quite a significant XG, and a majority of that actually came against Brighton. Then Aston Villa, a lot of us are considering selling Ollie Watkins. Is that the right decision to actually go for when you guys look at these stats? But I think it's because Ollie Watkins actually hasn't been contributing that much to this XG. Then the final team, Newcastle, going to avoid them for the time being. The fixtures still look pretty tough, but they do face Liverpool on the weekend. Then go on to the bottom 6 teams, and I've got an asterisk next to Burnley and Luton because please remember they've only played 1 game this Premier League season after having a blank game week in Game Week 2. So Burnley, Sheffield United, Luton, Fulham, Nottingham Forest and finally Arsenal are going to be your worst attacking sides in the Prem at the moment. So one team here is not like the other. We have an imposter amongst us. It's going to be Arsenal at the bottom there with a surprisingly low amount of XG. The fixtures for them haven't even been that bad, so this might be a little bit of a worrying sign. But if your defenders are facing the teams on the right hand side, the chance of a clean sheet should be quite high. So I'm going to skip ahead quite quickly because we have so much content to get through in this ultimate guide. So now let's go over the defensive ratings. Now instead of using XG conceded, I've actually gone for X clean sheets just because the defender, their main source of points is going to be clean sheets. And in the opening 2 games, maybe they faced a Man City or something like that, considered a large amount of XG in one game, but the other game looked pretty decent. So I want to kind of average out over 90 minutes here, and the expected clean sheets do that for me. So it's not a surprise that Man City are the best defense in the Prem at the moment, and they're expected to keep an average of 0.7 clean sheets per game, which is simply outstanding. So that's why we're always speaking about Edison in preseason, didn't actually go for him at the end of the day, but if you guys are targeting a defender to go for, and you can predict who's going to start the majority of games, the Man City defenders are no-brainer. We're then going to follow up with Nottingham Forest, and this is quite surprising to me because I do own Turner. I think it's because of the second game against Burnley. They only scored from an absolute banger, which was a very low XG shot. So their expected clean sheets per game is 0.53, so that's quite nice if you guys do own Turner. We then have Brentford, Arsenal, Crystal Palace, and finally West Ham. So all these teams have had pretty good defensive performances. The one team I want to point out here is Arsenal because a lot of us are considering selling these defenders. So if you are considering selling Gabriel, you might want to think otherwise. Then moving on to the right hand side, the worst kind of defenses in the Prem at the moment. Very integral to kind of target Captaincy as well as fixture runs because Luton, Fulham, Spurs, Burnley, United, and Everton all have the worst kind of clean sheet potential. Now Luton and Burnley once again have only played 1 fixture, but their defensive numbers aren't looking too strong, and as an Ollie Watkins potential seller, that's not too great. But I am looking to buy Nicholas Jackson in his place, so Luton are the worst defense at the moment, but because Fulham have played 2 games and have a low expected clean sheet, I'd consider them to be the worst defense. Another interesting one for me was going to be those Spurs assets, have been conceding quite a few chances. That's kind of represented by that low expected clean sheet, so just keep that in mind if you are targeting that Spurs defense. Finally, the United defense, also a little bit of surprise there. I know the template kind of goalkeepers are Nana at the moment. And when you also look at Everton, the goalkeeper situation is a little bit worrying for the template. I'm quite happy that I'm on the left-hand side there with Johnson between the sticks, but Pickford and Onana could still perform by getting a few saves. So once again, the teams on the left are to target if you're going to look at defenders, and then the teams on the right, you target them for your attackers. Now I know I've gone through that quite quickly just because I think most people kind of skip through the stats quite fast, but you guys can go over to Fix and go onto the Opta Stats Sandbox if you want to pull any other stats. But now let's go on to the actual main talking points, and I'll slow it down for these because quite a lot of information is going to be coming your way through the next talking points. The first one's going to be, should you transfer Gabriel out? So obviously the Arsenal centre-back hasn't started the opening 2 games. That was a massive surprise for me. I thought that he would at least start game week 2. What seems like might have happened is that with Zinchenko out, they've had to shift that back 4. Now if you guys have seen, Timber has just gotten injured, Tomiyasu is suspended, and Zinchenko's back in training. So I do expect Gabriel to actually start game week 3 against Fulham at home. Now is that the best fixture in the world? Maybe not, but you guys have just seen the stats. The stats look pretty strong from an Arsenal defensive point of view, and Fulham aren't the best side going forward. So should you actually sell Gabriel? In my opinion, I don't think he's a massive sell for game week 3. Think that he should be starting in that lineup. Obviously that's not with 100% certainty, Arteta can do whatever he wants, but I think the clean sheet potential for Arsenal against Fulham is quite high. Also added to that, Gabriel off those set pieces is a massive threat, and Fulham are quite susceptible to that. So I can perfectly understand if you guys do want to take him out, but I would probably take out other fives first. But in a game week where we're considering where to use the 2 free transfers, he might be on the chopping block. So there are 2 replacements that I potentially look at. I'm going to go for different budget ranges. The first person, but I think the majority of us do own him, is Ben Chilwell. I definitely would get him into your squads if you guys haven't, but I won't be covering him because I think everyone does own him. So the number 1 replacement, we spoke about how good that defense has been this season, how they're good every single season. It's the Man City defense, and my personal favorite is Ruben Dias. Now just look at those fixtures. Sheffield United, Fulham and West Ham. Clean sheets could be had in all 3 games, as long as Ruben Dias does play. Now yes, he is slightly more expensive than someone like a Guardiola or an Akanji, but I do believe he's worth that extra 0.5. Kind of the main leader in that defensive department. I don't think he'll be as rotated as the other options, and that's why personally he's my favorite. But the big disclaimer about Man City is that obviously Pep can rotate the squad as much as he wants. None of these options are certain to play, but I do believe Ruben Dias should start the majority of games, which should result in a lot of clean sheets. There are a few other premium options that you guys can look at. I just believe that Man City are the current leaders with a lovely fixture run coming up. But if you guys do want to go for kind of saving some more budget, saving some more value, I do like Udogie or Udogie from Spurs, as their next 3 are simply outstanding. So Bournemouth away, Burnley away and Sheffield United at home. Even though the Spurs defense hasn't been that great this season, his attacking threat is quite nice. Now if you guys do want to go for kind of a more differential punch, you can go for someone like Rico Henry from Brentford. Great defensive numbers as well for Brentford's side. And he also has some attacking threat as a fullback. So it kind of depends on where you guys want to go, if you want to go more expensive or go kind of cheaper. The more expensive bracket unfortunately isn't too great. Probably wouldn't take Saliba to an Arsenal defender as a straight swap. And therefore it's only the Man City assets that are kind of left. Now you can go early on a Newcastle asset if you want to. I just believe it might be too early as their fixtures only improve from game week 5 onwards. Now you're probably asking me, where are the Chelsea defenders? That's a very viable question. I just believe with Gusto as my favorite option. Reece James will only be out for kind of a few games, and then Gusto becomes a rotation concern. Now you guys can also look at someone like a Thiago Silva or a Cole at 4.5 million, but I just believe at that price point I would go for a more attacking option. So if you guys are looking to take Gabriel out, comment down below who's your favorite replacement, or are you just keeping him? Now let's go on to the next talking point, which is going to be Foden versus Alvarez. So the Man City assets are bringing a lot of attention to them. You can understand why the fixtures look so strong on paper, and the 2 options at the current moment that are quite popular are bringing in Phil Foden or bringing in Alvarez. Now there are 2 big differences between these 2 assets. We have Phil Foden as a midfielder and Alvarez as a forward, and Alvarez has come in cheaper at 0.5 million. However, they both rose in price last night, so if you guys to go early on them, comment it down below. And which of these 2 did you guys opt for? For me, this kind of debate is a team formation question. Are you willing to take out a midfielder or a forward? I think the majority of us are looking to take out a forward, whether it be João Pedro or Ollie Watkins. That's why Alvarez at the current moment I think has the edge in terms of flexibility. But taking out team structure, if you guys are on a wildcard for example, and considering either of these 2 assets, which one should you go for? Now let's just discuss their position for the current moment. With Kevin De Bruyne out injured, it seems like Phil Foden or Alvarez might play in that slot, or we've seen Phil Foden or Alvarez shift to right wing. Now because they are kind of playing similar positions, I believe that Phil Foden has the edge because he is listed as a midfielder, so an extra point per goal and also an extra clean sheet point. Now yes, Alvarez is cheaper, but I think that positional change does make up for it, so on that factor I do prefer Foden. But let's go over the actual stats, and I'm going to bring up a couple of stats here to compare them. This is going to be minutes, XG, XA points, and finally expected FPL points over 90 minutes. So both these two options are kind of tied on minutes. They've both played every single minute of Game Week 1 and every single minute of Game Week 2. So on current form, they look quite nailed. Now, as with any Man City asset, please don't think that they are nailed. There could be some rotation here, but if both of them come off the bench, I can see them getting points still, especially against these easier teams. So going over XG, Phil Foden is leading 0.41 compared to 0.28, also leading in terms of XA, which is expected assists, at 0.38 compared to 0.23. Now both these two assets have scored the same amount of points, 6 points per game over the opening two, but Phil Foden has the expected points difference. So based on expected FPL points, Phil Foden is underperforming, Alvarez is overperforming, and that's quite interesting. So in terms of the stats, once again, I'm going to give this to Phil Foden. I think that he's the better attacking option at the current moment. And as I always say, as long as he plays, he gets you FPL points. But this debate isn't kind of simply stats versus stats. It's very kind of team-based, very positional-based, as most of us are looking to take out a forward instead of a midfielder. But what I will say is that let's just say you're in a debate about a Nicholas Jackson and a Sterling versus an Alvarez and a Foden. I'd much prefer Foden and Nicholas Jackson than Alvarez and Sterling. So if you have that debate, easy decision to go for, and I'll definitely try to prioritize Foden. Let me know in the comments down below if you guys do agree with me. I just believe on the stats, on the position that he's listed as a midfielder, Foden has that edge, but I guess he is slightly more expensive. But comment down below, who are you going for out of these two options? Are you trying to ignore them even though they have great fixtures? Because that's what I'm trying to do, and I'm finding it quite tough. Now the next talking point to go over in this ultimate guide is going to be which forward to kind of target. Now I don't know about you, but myself, I'm in kind of a forward dilemma at the current moment. I want to take out Ollie Watkins. Is it worth even taking him out? And if I do, who should I get? So I've listed my top 4 options in terms of the attacking department. It's going to be Visa from Brentford, Ollie Watkins from Aston Villa, Nicholas Jackson from Chelsea, and finally carrying over Alvarez like the previous talking point. So all 4 of these options come in at different price points. We have Visa on that 6 million bracket, Alvarez on that 6.6, we have Ollie Watkins at 8, and Jackson at 7. Now I do believe that all of these kind of players are affordable. If you guys started off with Ollie Watkins, you can downgrade to anyone, and I don't really think I would be targeting him to bring him in. So on screen you guys can see the same stats from the previous talking point, but now obviously we have 4 options to compare, and they're all going to be forwards. So in terms of minutes, we've seen Jackson and Alvarez be the most nailed. They played the maximum minutes in both games, whereas Visa's played the least. Now that's the big talking point about Visa. Unfortunately, he gets subbed around the 70-minute mark. Luckily though, he's managed to produce great returns, even though he's played less minutes. We then have Ollie Watkins, who was subbed quite early on in the previous fixture in Game Week 2. However, I wouldn't really look into that as he plays the majority of minutes most game weeks. So now moving on to XG, we spoke about Visa. Just look at that XG per 90 minutes, 0.97, almost a goal a game, and he hasn't even been on penalties. Second up is going to be Jackson at 0.74, then we have Ollie Watkins at 0.41, and finally Alvarez at 0.28. However, on the reverse of that, Alvarez does have the best kind of assisting threat, which shows you that he is playing more of a midfielder role. Whereas the other 3 are kind of set strikers. I mean 0.0 XA from Jackson is simply outstanding. Don't know if that's good or bad. Then moving on to actual FPL points, you can see that Visa's racking up a lovely 12 points per game, whereas Jackson's on the least with only 1. But taking a look at expected FPL points, once again we can see that kind of Visa is the king of the game weeks at 9.35. Then all the other options are quite closely related. We have Jackson leading at just under 5, alongside Alvarez at 4.8 and Ollie Watkins at 4.3. So I do believe that Visa is actually being very underrated at the moment. Is he a better option though than Ollie Watkins, Jackson and Alvarez? Well, the stats are telling you so, but I guess these are previous points. But you can't argue with stats at the end of the day, so Visa is definitely the king. But if you aren't looking at Visa and looking at one of the other options, it does look like Nicholas Jackson might be the one to look at. Now I'm going to bring up fixtures right now because I always like to compare the stats and the fixtures. So on screen right now you guys can see next to their photos, it's the next 6 fixtures of all the forwards. So let's start off with the Brentford man, Visa, the king of the stats. He has some lovely fixtures coming up, only kind of Newcastle and United away that aren't looking too strong, but I can even see Brentford scoring against them. So between that Crystal Palace and Bournemouth at home, Everton, Nottingham Forest, these fixtures are pretty strong if you guys want to go for him. Then we move on to Ollie Watkins, and this is kind of the dilemma I'm in. Is it worth taking out Ollie Watkins this week against Burnley away for one of the other options? I think that he might be kind of a victim of his circumstance because with 2 free transfers, I can't do much with my team, so I'm almost preempting a move in the future. That move will probably be for Jackson from Chelsea, as Luton at home, Nottingham Forest at home, and then Bournemouth away are simply outstanding. Does have Aston Villa at home, which I mean we have seen them concede quite a few to Newcastle, before completing the next 6 with Fulham and Burnley. So I don't really think that you guys can compare the fixtures of Ollie Watkins to Jackson, because that Chelsea run is simply superb. Then finally we do have Alvarez, who has Sheffield United away and Fulham at home, probably the two best fixtures on the cards, and then finishes the run with Nottingham Forest at home and Wolves away as well. So great fixtures on paper here for those Man City assets, and I can understand why you guys want to go for them. I just believe I might go for the more certainty of the minutes with someone like a Jackson. So my current thinking at the moment is preferring Jackson to Ollie Watkins, but I do believe Wiese is being severely underlooked. The only concern, I guess, is the fact that I don't want to really double up on the Brentford attack. Almost hope that Mbeumo kind of covers Wiese's points, and then I get a piece of those lovely Chelsea fixtures. But if you guys do want to go for the double up on that Brentford attack, it's 100% fine, and the stats are telling you to do it. But once again, comment down below who's your favorite kind of forward to go for at the current moment. Are you taking out Ollie Watkins to someone like a Jackson? Are you going for Alvarez? Or are you looking at Wiese? What I will say is that if you guys do own João Pedro, I would probably make the switch to one of these options, as the Brighton fixtures do get a lot tough, and I guess he is a minutes concern. But if you guys do own Ollie Watkins, completely different debate to go for, as that Burnley away game in Game Week 3 is still quite strong. Now the next talking point I want to go over is going to be a quick comparison between Rashford and Bruno Fernandes, or Bruno Fernandes, or I'm going to just call him Bruno. And if you are looking to take one of them out, who should you take out? Now in my opinion, I think that you probably should keep both of them. Nottingham Forest at home is a pretty strong fixture, and you guys have seen the United attacking stats are still looking pretty decent. But if you guys are looking to take one of them out, who should you take out and who should you keep? So in terms of the comparison between the kind of physical stats, they're both listed as midfielders. There's only a 0.5 difference in price, and with the current economy of FPL, that's not too much. In terms of the stats, we can see that both of them are pretty nailed. Bruno has the majority of minutes, but that's kind of expected, and Rashford's only missed out on 7. In terms of XG, Rashford has racked up 0.72 per game, which is simply outstanding, and unfortunately he just hasn't been scoring. Bruno on the other hand, not too shabby, 0.4 about in terms of XG, and as a midfielder, that's pretty decent. The big difference though does come in XA, with 0.11 for Rashford expected as a striker out of position, whereas the natural position of Bruno offers a more assisting threat. What was interesting for me though is the fact that kind of Bruno is assisting Rashford, Bruno's expected to get the assist, Rashford's expected to score the goal, but that hasn't been happening. So I guess it's who do you punish in that situation? Do you punish the assister or do you punish the scorer as they've just missed the target? Now, this is kind of one of those factors that I was considering keeping both of them, because if Rashford's going to score, Bruno will probably be involved and vice versa. In terms of actual points, 2.6 per game is pretty terrible, but their expected FPL points are looking a little bit more decent. Now Rashford just has the slight edge because of the kind of goal threat he has. Goals are always weighted more than assists, and that explains that 6.2 compared to 6.09. So if you guys are looking to take out one of these options at the current moment, I still would probably take out Bruno before Rashford. I just prefer that tagging threat that he does offer, still is out of position, but I actually hope that he reverts to left wing. Now in terms of the fixtures coming up, the fixtures don't look that great, to be honest. Nottingham Forest 1 is perfectly fine, but Arsenal and Brighton after that, I might look to shift them on come game week 4. But if you guys do keep them, I guess Brighton are conceding quite a lot of XG. They then have Burnley away and Crystal Palace at home. So once again, comment down below if you were to take out one of these options, who would it be? Are you on my side with keeping Rashford, or do you believe that Bruno is the more essential option? I'll probably keep them and reassess come game week 4 because I want 1 week more of information, especially because they play against Nottingham Forest at home. Now the next talking point, I'm going to run through the best fixtures of game week 3 quite quickly. You guys can target these from a Captaincy point of view, or simply if you're looking for kind of a free hit squad. So on the left hand side, according to Fix, these are directly from the fixture analyzer from the Fix website, and the best attacking stats on the left hand side. So Chelsea have the best attacking fixture, which is why I'm targeting Nicholas Jackson. Luton at home is simply outstanding, Chelsea should score a few, so hopefully the players I bring in are involved. We then have United against Nottingham Forest at home, that's why I'm looking at keeping Bruno and Rashford. We then have City against Sheffield United away, expectation there, but the interesting one is actually Bournemouth against Spurs. So I think this is because it is a home fixture, but also Spurs have been conceding quite a lot of XG this season and last season, and Bournemouth's attack isn't too shabby. We then have Brighton against West Ham at home, and finally Spurs against Bournemouth away, so that Bournemouth-Spurs game should have lots of goals in it. Then on the right hand side, in terms of the best defensive fixtures, Everton, if you guys own Pickford, has the best defensive rating against Wolves at home. However, I can see Wolves actually scoring this one. We then have that Chelsea defense, so both the attack and the defense should get you FPL points against Luton at home. We then have United, Aston Villa, Man City and Brentford, and I honestly think that all of these teams have the chance of a clean sheet. So if you guys are looking for Captaincy, looking for defenders, who to play, that sort of thing, the left hand side is the best attacking fixtures and the right hand side is the best defensive ones. Now the final talking point we're going to be going over is going to be all about captaincy. Now you might be wondering, this might be a waste of time to be honest, because Erling Haaland is going to have the majority. Now I do agree with you, the effective ownership on Haaland is going to be outstanding once again. I think 91% own at the current moment, and I wouldn't be surprised if everyone actually captains him. But there are some other alternatives if you guys do want to go there. I think the Bukayo Saka against Fulham at home is a great fixture. Fingers crossed he actually keeps the pen this time. So if you guys don't know, Odegaard actually asked him for the penalty, Saka gave it to him, but that doesn't mean that Saka's off penalties for the time being. But it might be a little bit risky, but I do believe that Fulham at home game is the best game in Game Week 3, even though Arsenal's attack hasn't been that great. Now, a very big kind of outside punt that I would potentially look at is going for Raheem Sterling against Luton at home. You can go for Jackson as well. I just prefer Sterling at the current moment because he looked a lot better in Game Week 2. Also added to that, the extra point per goal, extra clean sheet point as well. Raheem Sterling could be on for an absolute haul here. Now, yes, there are a few other options you guys could look at. You could look at a Heung-min Son, has a great game against Bournemouth away. Even a Bruno or Rashford against Nottingham Forest at home. But I think the majority of us will be on Erling Haaland. So this is one of those things that adds to the factor that Alvarez or Foden are so nice because you guys can get this fixture as well. Get those differential points. Everyone captains Erling Haaland, so he's kind of negated. But you still jump on those Man City attacking returns. So that's why I actually like getting that move in if you guys do want to go for it. So comment down below if you're going to do that. Also comment down below who's your Captaincy option for this week. If it's Erling Haaland, you guys don't have to comment. If it's someone different, I want to see who you guys are going for because that's simply Maverick. Now lastly, in terms of projected points, just to kind of show you the debate is even easier, Erling Haaland has the highest projected points from Fix at 7.5, and then Saka and Raheem Sterling are both at 5.5. So if the Fix is telling you that it's good, the projected points are telling you it's good, chances are Erling Haaland should get a haul in Game Week 3. Now this will conclude the ultimate guide, but as always, if you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments down below on my Discord server. It's a second link in the description. I reply to every comment, so no comment is going to be too much for me. So if you have any dilemmas, I'll try and help you out. But this is basically going to wrap up the video, guys. Hope you guys did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like if you did and subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Team selection coming up tomorrow, so make sure those bell notifications are turned on because you guys don't want to miss that one. But I'm signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL and I'm out. Cheers, bye.